Amazing. So good morning. Nice to see everyone here today. Like she said, my name's Lucy G, and I'm a threat intelligence analyst at KnowBe4. Now, a big part of my role is analysing those phishing threats, so looking at the new and emerging techniques and payloads we're seeing coming into our organisations and doing a deep dive into why the attacker might be using these techniques, right? Now, before I dive into the presentation today, I just wanted to hit you all with a stat. So would you believe that 84% of phishing emails we've seen this year utilise some form of artificial intelligence? It is a very high percentage, but that is really representative of how fast the threat landscape is moving today. Perfect. So before I dive in, let's talk through a little bit of an agenda. So like I said, we're going to touch on that emerging threat landscape, and we're going to do a deep dive into some of the key threats I'm seeing, because this gives you guys time to take back some insights to your organizations and be really aware of the threats you could be facing today. Now, it also wouldn't be a cyber presentation in 2025 without talking about artificial intelligence. So, of course, we're going to discuss that. And we're going to talk about the benefits that artificial intelligence gives us, because it does speed up our lives. But attackers are also leveraging it and weaponizing it against us. And then we'll wrap up with some key takeaways, because it is really vital for you to understand the threats that you could be facing today and how to best protect your organizations moving forward. Okay, so let's dive into phishing. Now, we all know that the threat landscape is moving quicker than ever before. It is really rapidly evolving, and it is something we all need to be aware of. And a big factor for this is artificial intelligence. It has absolutely changed the game. It's changed how we work as humans, but it's also changed how attackers can phish us. Now, every year, the percentage of phishing does increase, and we always see this big, scary number on the screen of phishing emails increasing, and it still is increasing. But what's really more prominent in the threat landscape today is that the level of sophistication in these phishing emails has absolutely skyrocketed. So where we've seen the percentage of phishing still increase, but less than we have in previous years, sophistication has really taken over. Now, a large part of that is due to the fact that attackers are using compromised business accounts. So they're taking over these accounts that are used for legitimate communication, and they're using those and leveraging that to send phishing emails out. Now, the benefits of that are tremendous, right? So they've got that authentication passing at a high level, and there's a long shelf life on those accounts. So they're not newly registered domains that traditional solutions will pick up immediately. They've been around for years and years. Now, why would attackers stop there and just compromise any business account where they can compromise a business account that's within your supply chain, right? They're taking up that sophistication an extra layer, because not only do they have the same benefits as authentication passing, they now have that trusted two-way relationship, right? So if James and I are emailing every single month and we've built up that relationship, normal traditional solutions are just going to think, that's fine. He's not going to send me a phishing email, right? And I'm not going to think it either. But what happens if someone compromises James? What happens if they've analysed how he communicates with me and how he speaks to everyone else in his supply chain? What if they replicate that and send a phish using James's account? Traditional solutions are not going to know this is an attack. I'm probably not going to know this is an attack. And this is what attackers are really leveraging today. They're going to all of these going past these existing attack vectors and taking it further and increasing that sophistication, because ultimately they want these phishing emails to land in users' inboxes. If an attack is fantastic, but any traditional solution just quarantines it, what was the point in them making it? They're out to get their payday, and to do that, they need the attack in the user's inbox. And with traditional solutions and more sophisticated solutions really expanding their capabilities in the space, they need to be evolving too, these attackers. They need these attacks in the inbox. Go to the next slide, maybe? Oh, too far. Okay. Still too far. There we go. Technology is fantastic. Okay. There we go. Yes. So Now, moving on to absolutely everyone's favorite buzzword in the space, artificial intelligence. And we absolutely can joke that AI is everywhere nowadays. I know my parents like to throw it in every conversation they have. But it truly has been thrust into all of our lives, right? You open your phone, you're needing Face ID to unlock it. You have Siri there constantly listening and can give you real-time, any information you want it to give. I have a robot Hoover back in my flat that knows the layout of my flat and is programmed to clean my floors when I'm out. It really is everywhere now. So social media is constantly listening to what we're saying. I know I'm personally getting loads of gift recommendations now we're in the run-up to Christmas, and I'm sure you are too. It's present in emails, right? No longer do you have to read that really long email from your boss. You now have Gemini at the top giving you an AI summary of what the content of the email contains. It truly does speed up our lives in all aspects, and it is fantastic. It is a great tool. It's in the education space, right? You want to learn a language, you can leverage Duolingo's AI. It knows your strengths and weaknesses better than you do. No longer are you having to write that report that's been sat on your desk for ages. Just put it in ChatGPT. ChatGPT and LLMs have really sped up everything for us, and it is great. AI has really cut out those tedious and mundane tasks that we have in everyday life and has simplified everything. It's allowed us to become more efficient, more effective, and just quicker than ever before. Now, when there's good, like I've pointed out in AI there is often bad, right? And attackers, like I mentioned earlier, are really leveraging that. So let's talk about how they're leveraging that. So the most prominent way in which attackers are using AI in this space is the speed and ease in which they can collect all of the information there is to know about you, your organization, and frankly, everyone you know. They're building up this social profile of you. And before AI, this was a very manual process, right? They would go through your LinkedIn, they'd go through all of your social media, they would find out absolutely everything there is to know about you. But that was very manual, very time-consuming. So what we saw is that instead of making these really personalized attacks to that one individual, they were making generic phishing attacks and sending them en masse. Because what was the point in targeting one person and learning everything there is to know about one person, tailoring that phishing attack and sending it, when there's still a chance they won't engage with it? They've wasted all of that time, and attackers are in it for money. So instead, they were doing these generic phishing attacks because even if 99% of people don't engage with it, all it takes is that 1%, right? Or 1% of people engaging with that phishing email, and attackers have got their payday. And this is what they were doing. So they now have the tools to find out absolutely everything there is to know about you and everyone you know, and your likes and dislikes, right? So if they were doing a deep dive on me, they would discover that I'm way more likely to engage in a phishing email that's saying I've won tickets to go and see the F1 than I've won tickets for an Xbox. They know your likes and dislikes, and they truly will tailor this to you. Perfect. So let's have a look at how these attackers have really changed the game in the phishing email space. So it is in the news, and it is everywhere, and it is deepfake. And we are starting to see it seep into your phishing emails. So before, and still to this day is consistent, emails are built up of linguistics and of text, and the attackers really have to spell out exactly what they want from the recipient, right? They have to manipulate them into doing something and put it in the email. And as you can see in the example, that is still what they're doing. But how they're taking this sophistication up a notch is they're attaching that little MP3 audio file in the bottom right of the email. So that is where, and when we were dissecting this email back in our office in Cheltenham, this is where the attacker has found an audio of that particular company's CEO and has used their voice and used the asks within the email to create an audio file of that CEO requesting a money transfer, right? And now you suddenly have all of the social engineering tactics that would be in the text. You have all the senses of urgency, but you have it in someone you know's voice. You have it with their stutters, their filler words. It suddenly becomes so much more believable and scary. So by extracting all of those key terms, and so the phrases of urgency, you're defeating all of those traditional red flags, that you look for in emails and what security look for in emails, because they can't scan this. So we're really seeing the sophistication in this aspect increase in emails. Now, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but the level of personalization in these phishing attacks now is quite frankly scary. They're using that open source intelligence, like I mentioned at the start, to really personalize and tailor this phishing attack to you, because it's ultimately going to give them better rewards. So in this example here, not only did they know that Jessica was having a barbecue, but they knew that the potato salad was delicious, right? But they took it a step further. They found out the authentication method that company uses. So they're not just throwing in please authenticate or hedging their bets and going use Microsoft Authenticator. They've done their deep dives. They've done proper research and found out that this company uses a YubiKey as their authentication. They're reducing those red flags because you've got the pleasantries at the start of the email. You've got the conversation. And this is built into us and is innate in us as humans, right? You want a bit of a story, a few sentences of pleasantries first before you just dive in, How was your weekend? How are your kids? You need that. While I've got you, can you help me with X? You like that, and it's present in all of us in our everyday conversations. And this ultimately makes you want to reply to the email. It makes you want to engage because it seems legitimate on the surface. Now, the first two examples were really how AI can be weaponized against the person. And this remains to be manipulated against the person, right? Because humans are the ones clicking on the phishing links, engaging with the fraudulent invoices. But they've also made it a little bit more sophisticated by including a technique that actually hurts the machines and your detection too. So this is an example of a polymorphic phishing attack. And a polymorphic phishing attack is where you've got a couple of different attacks that look the same and sometimes even identical on the surface. But the attacker's being smart and they're changing a couple of characters in the subject line or in the from address. And what this is doing is this is changing the hashes of the email. So traditional solutions like to group emails into campaigns because this is how they're identifying phishing. But instead, attackers are making every single email completely unique. So you can't campaign these emails all together. So why would I, as an attacker, keep the same from address every single time or keep the same malicious link when they're all going to be put on block lists? Instead, I'm changing it every time. I'm changing the body of the email. So Cameron may have won £1 million if he clicks on this link here, and he may have won £2 million if he clicks on a different one in a different email, right? Because this is ultimately what traditional solutions are looking for. They're looking to group all of these emails. Amazing. So this example is a really fascinating one because they're still attacking the human, obviously, because that's what phishing emails is for, but they are essentially wiping what the machine can see. So if you look at the example on the left, it looks like your typical DHL email. It's got the branding, it's got the logo, all the colors. You've missed your shipment, click here to reschedule. We've all received them. It looks pretty legitimate, right? However, on the right, you can actually see that all of the linguistics look completely messed up. They are gobbledygook. It doesn't make sense when you read it. And I know it is a little bit small, so I'm hoping everyone can see it. But this is what the attackers are doing. They're using obfuscation to hide the actual asks within the email. So where traditional solutions are designed to look for those phrases of urgency, please click this link, you no longer can. You can't scan this anymore. Now, you need to make sure that you have a solution that is keeping up to date with this, because this is disrupting natural language processing, so your traditional solutions cannot detect this. They cannot scan this. Now, at KnowBe4 Defend, what we can do is we can not only detect it as a technique, but we can decode it and scan the email as the human would see to pick up on all of those senses of urgency. Now, I'm getting to the end of the presentation, and I know it has been quick today. And just before I wrap up completely, I just wanted to highlight that phishing is still the primary vector of how these attackers are getting into your organizations. And actually, this is the lowest level of sophistication it's ever going to be. It is constantly going to evolve quicker, and they're just going to gather more information about you and use it against you. And I hope I've been able to demonstrate to you that the threat landscape truly is fascinating currently. The days for checking for spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes are completely over. Now, you need to make sure you're securing your organizations. If the policies you are creating are 2, 4, 5 years old, are they still up to date? Are they still cutting it? You need to make sure that the solutions you have in place really can detect these sophisticated threats. Now, it's not all doom and gloom, and I certainly don't want to end my presentation on such a negative note. So I do just want to highlight that you need to invest in a solution that really uses AI to help defeat the bad guys, help mitigate against these advanced threats, and that is what KnowBe4 Defend does. Now, thank you very much for coming to listen to my presentation today. What we have just released at KnowBe4 is our volume 6 of our phishing threat trends report. So if you wanted to see anything in more detail or learn about all the other attack vectors that we're seeing, feel free to scan the QR code or the link and you'll be able to download it. But thank you very much for your time.
Thanks a lot, Lucy.
Thank you.